again, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Elaine Lee. I studied fashion in school, but I started teaching myself how to paint and draw, and I fell in love with illustrating. So now I'm working in textile design and I freelance as an illustrator. I also bullet journal and art journal. My favorite mediums are color pencil, gouache, and watercolor paint. And in this video, I'll be sharing with you in detail my top 10 favorite art supplies. I'm super excited to update my old video from 2 years ago, so let's get started. Okay, first things first, what is my favorite gouache paint? Holbein, of course. I will also talk about a more affordable alternative soon, but these are my favorite gouache paint because their colors are so pigmented, the texture is perfect, it's always been consistent, and it has never failed me. I like to play with the opacity of my gouache, so sometimes I water it down like watercolor and other times I use it thick and super opaque, just like acrylic. However, I also love Winsor Newton gouache. I think it's a few dollars cheaper, so it's still a little pricey. If you're a beginner, I would recommend Reeves. It's super affordable. Their tubes are a little bigger and I had some for about 10 years and the paint still works like I got it yesterday. Next up is, of course, color pencil. 5 years ago, I would never say color pencils were my favorite art medium, but I just hadn't met the right color pencil for me yet. These Swiss-made Caran d'Ache Pablo pencils are smooth and vibrant. They almost remind me of soft pastels, but in a pencil. A few years ago, I went on a trip and brought only color pencils with me. It was a challenge for myself to only use color pencil on my art journal. And shockingly, I loved it. I've used Prismacolor pencils before, but I feel like they're a little harder than these. These Caran d'Ache pencils apply so softly, like I said, feels more like soft pastel. In my recent illustrations, I like using color pencil for the details. In these, I use color pencil for the texture of the wood. So what are you waiting for? Go to an art store and try these babies out. Actually, wait, we have 8 more art supplies to talk about. The perfect white pen. I feel like everyone is always hunting for the perfect white pen. Well, I have just the thing. This Acrylograph white pen by Archer and Olive is better than whiteout. I'm not sure if that's a good comparison, but it feels like a liquidy white acrylic paint marker that doesn't flake like whiteout. It's super opaque and satisfying to use. Look at how white it gets over my gouache paint. Also, these products are listed in the description below, and for this one, I was able to get a coupon code for you. Number 4, graphite pencils. Why do I have to share my favorite pencils? Because I feel like underdrawings are important, and using the right medium is even more important. These Staedtler Lumograph H pencils are my favorite because they apply so lightly and they erase easily. My favorite weights are 2H and H. Basically, in the HB pencil system, H stands for hard and B stands for black, which is to me soft and dark and smudgy, which is a big no-no for my underdrawings. I like my pencils with no smear, thank you. That's why I stick with H pencils to do my super light sketches before I paint. Let's talk about erasers. These two are a staple. I've bought these and used them up and then bought them again. Meet my Staedtler eraser. It erases so well and it doesn't wear out the surface. Then my Kneaded Eraser. I forget what brand this is, but I don't think it matters. It's super malleable and it doesn't leave eraser dust. Let me show you. Now just imagine how nice it is not having to clean up that eraser dust. I get asked about this weekly. I use the Stillman and Burn sketchbook in 2 different series, Zeta and Delta. You always see my Zeta art journal on Instagram. I have it in like 4 sizes. It is a soft cover multimedia journal that handles gouache pretty well. Their Delta journal is better for wet media. It also has a ivory shade paper, and I use a sketchbook when I want to play with watercolor. Here's a comparison of the Zeta and Delta journal. The Zeta journal has a smooth, bright white paper, and the Delta journal has a textured ivory paper. These are hands down my favorite sketchbooks of all time, and I highly recommend them if you're looking to replace yours. Next is masking fluid. This is my favorite masking fluid. It's just fun to use. So I wanted to show it off. It kind of smells though, just a warning. You could also use wax crayon or washi tape, but I'm using this masking fluid because it keeps areas of my paper white from paint. So I just rub it off, and then it reveals a perfectly white, untouched area of my paper. I have to talk about these rulers because they make my life so much easier. I started using these Westcott rulers when I was learning pattern making in college. Because they are transparent, it's so easy to measure and scale up with these. Also, the little one is perfect for bullet journaling, but get this only if you want to make your life easier. Paintbrushes. This is an exciting subject because I've increased my paintbrush collection since the last time we talked about paintbrushes. Actually, last time I said I thought cheap Michaels paintbrush sets were sufficient, plus some Princeton detail brushes. But since then, I've been studying the brushes that watercolor artists use and discovered that there are many cool brushes because their shape and the amount of water that it can hold. It makes very cool shapes with just one paint stroke. This, of course, takes skill and practice, which I still need plenty of, but let me show you what I mean. This angle brush makes a perfect leaf shape if you can get the right angle and stroke motion right. This is actually a Chinese calligraphy brush by a company called Silver. I love how it can hold so much paint in its belly, and with the right strokes you can create flower petals in various sizes, both thin and wide with a pointy edge. This next brush is an oval wash brush that creates wider petals with a pointy edge. I want to try a filbert brush one day for a flatter, rounder shape. I'll be listing all these brushes in the description box below. These brushes are all very cool if you're looking to increase your brush collection. Okay, last but not least, watercolor paper. I cannot stress enough how important watercolor paper is to anyone who aspires to paint using watercolor or gouache. One reason being that paint absorbs and dries better on this paper created specifically for it. I use both hot and cold pressed paper. So simply put, hot pressed paper has a smoother surface than cold press. There's also a difference between cellulose paper and cotton paper. I prefer cotton paper because it stays wet for a longer time and it absorbs wet media better than cellulose paper. But I noticed that cellulose paper is cheaper, so I use them to practice on. I also like hot pressed paper because I feel like it's better for small details. In my last video, I talked about how much I love the Arches watercolor paper, but that life got too expensive for me. So in this video, I'm recommending Fluid, Blick's, and Fabriano. They are way more affordable and they still do a fine job. These are my cold pressed paper. The surface of these are rougher, and I noticed that my cheaper cold pressed paper has an even rougher surface. I like switching between my hot and cold press because cold press adds a little texture to my paintings. So depending on what kind of look I'm going for, I select between the two. This last paper I wanted to share about is a new paper that I'm trying out. It's not pressed, so it's very rough, and not only rough but bumpy. It's a little challenging to paint precisely, so you have to be okay with an organic looking painting. I think the unpressed nature and the decal edge adds interest to my paintings, and I'm looking forward to binding these papers together into a book. So that's it. Thank you for watching. I hope this video was helpful. Don't forget to subscribe for more creative hangouts and videos.